Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. You are part of a first tonight. You are part of the launch for the Bashor Children's Home 99 Club. Yeah, 99 right here. See, it's a podcast that's going to give voice to the most vulnerable children and the experts who help them here at Bashor Children's Home. The 99 Club. How did we get that? You might say. Well, we'll explain it a couple of times during the course of the program. But for a $99 donation to Bashor Children's Home, you also can be part of this club. Get this fine t-shirt that will look better on you than it does on me. And what our goal is to find 99 people in this, the 99th year of Bashor Children's Home, or the Bashor Home of the United Methodist Church, as our history will tell us. But at any rate, we're hoping that you will go to bashor.org and click in or answer on Facebook and say, hey, I'm in. And we're going to see what we can do over the course of these programs, launching with the past, the present, and the future over our first three programs. We'll be airing the first and third Wednesday of each month. So you're already set for the next three programs, the past, the present, and the future. And what they did was drug out two old guys from the archives to do the past. There's old and older. I'm Vince Turner. I was here at Bashor Children's Home as the Director of Development from 1997 till 2007. And Steve Ross has been here since, oh my goodness, Methuselah was a child.
1969.
1969. And it has been, for the most part, continuous.
Yes.
Your service has gone on for 50 years.
That it has.
So, Steve, as part of, before we get into a little bit of the nuts and bolts of the history of Bashor Children's Home, just talk a little bit about what brought you here.
In 1968, I was working for the state of Indiana at Logansport Hospital. And I was very frustrated working for the state. It was a wonderful experience, but one I would not want to repeat. But I was missing working with kids. I had worked 3 years at the Methodist home in Lebanon.
Okay.
And after being in Logansport for a while, I wanted to get back into residential care. And I actually interviewed here and a home in San Diego. And I was looking forward to living in San Diego. My family was out there. And in February of 1969, my wife and I were in the living room of the house that we were provided here at Bashor, and ask ourselves, why are we here and how did we get here? And in hindsight, the Lord had to work out a number of things to get me here. Yeah. But we came in 69, and I was glad to get back into residential care.
You know the old saw, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. Yes. And he giggled really well when he put you over there on Bashor Road. So, but it has been 50 years, and one of the constants in those 50 years, as part of the 99-year history of Bashor Children's Home, one of the constants has been change. And in 99% of the time, those changes have been positive. This mission has really grown.
Yes, it has.
Talk a little bit, if you would, about what you came to, because the transition had really just begun, going from what had been a boys' orphanage and transitioning into a true children's home where you were going to treat a different group of kids.
As I understand the history prior to my coming, there was a study done by Bashor in the early 60s. And the question was, did the Methodist Church need another home here in northern Indiana? They were also anticipating at that point the merger of the Methodist Church with the EUB Church. And both denominations had facilities. And the question was, should Bashor continue to exist? And at the end of that study, they determined not only should Bashor continue, but we should rebuild. And we, at the time the study was done, had an old farmhouse. There was an attachment added to that farmhouse. 20 kids were housed there, and it was an orphanage, basically. And the decision of the board at that time, too, was to start phasing out the orphans and bringing in young men who needed help. And Ray Stoll was hired as the executive director in September of 1968. And he hired me in February of 1969. And my job was to develop the program. I was the first professional social worker that the home had hired.
So when you came, the old home been torn down
The
yet?
old home was still
Okay.
there. We were using it.
Okay.
A matter of fact, my first night here, I was hearing voices, and I found a speaker under our bed that was wired to the bedroom where the boys lived, and I could hear the boys talking on this. And the first thing I did was get up and find a knife and cut the cord on the speaker.
But so and the cottages were built, and the interesting thing about it is the 4 cottages, which still exist,
Yes.
here on this. I'll even rewind a little bit more than that because of the history that I did during my time as development director, the research that Don Phillips had commissioned me to do. But this is 160 acres of really God-kissed territory. I mean, we've got a beautiful pond, and the acreage is great. The woods are great. We had the original farmhouse that John and Emmeline Bashor had left, but along come the cottages, and the cottages were built by volunteer labor, correct? Mission labor.
Oh, no.
No. Okay.
No, that's not
Yeah.
correct.
All right.
Do not remember the name of the construction. Easter Day
Okay.
was the name of the
Okay.
company that built the cottages. We started construction in the winter of 1970 and moved in the winter of 1971.
Okay.
And the garage,
Okay.
large garage,
Yeah.
was built with all volunteer
Right. That was when
labor.
the mission camp came, and
Yes,
Okay.
but we built this the office building and the 4 cottages,
Mhm.
and moved the boys in. Actually, we started by moving the 2 groups of boys over. We stayed with just the 2 groups for about 3 months, and then we started opening the 3rd cottage.
Mhm.
And it took another 3 months, and then we opened the 4th cottage. So we just did it very gradually. And back in that day, we had the concept of house parents.
Mhm.
So the people who lived here or worked here lived here.
Mhm.
And we actually had a very small staff for the number of kids that we were.
Well, and I think the last of the
developing.
house parents were still present in Geyer Cottage
We
when I came in 1997.
we had phased all the house parents
Okay.
out by the early 90s. We were all on shifts.
Mhm.
And when Rich Nelson came,
Okay.
he wanted to put 1 cottage, actually, he wanted to put 2 cottages back to the house parent concept. And so we did. And that was a challenge to go back to
Mhm.
house parents at that time. And when he left, so did the house parent concept, and we went back to all shifts.
Yep.
But I always laugh. When I started here, there were 5 of us working here.
Mhm.
And today we've probably got a staff of more than 120.
Yeah, it's
So-
grown. It's grown quite a bit. I will take a break a moment just to say we're celebrating 99 years helping children and families. We've created the Bashor Children's Home 99 Club right here. We want to get 99 people to give $99. And if you're one of them, you'll get one of these exclusive. Yep, I'm one of the first. Irish Dave back here, he stole the first one, but I'm the second one. I'm number 2. And you'll get to help neglected children in our community. To join, go to bashor.org and click donate. We also want to pass out a really big thank you to the folks at New Way Construction. New Way underwriting our program here, the 99 Club. New Way, where they build lasting relationships with clients, team members, and trade partners by providing a superior building experience. So for Andy and Fred and all the gang out at New Way, thanks for being a part of this. We certainly really appreciate you. And Steve, before we get back in talking a little bit about the history, that is part of the cord that weaves through Bashor for 99 years. Community support, church support, individual support has just been tremendous year after year.
Yes, it always has. And one of the reasons I came here is because it is a Methodist facility, and that's where my heart has always been, is working for the Methodist Church. And we've worked hard on our support, and it's beyond the Methodist too. There are a lot more people supporting Christian organizations and churches.
Well, and its roots it was Bashor Home, even without the children at that time, Bashor Home of the United Methodist Church. You'd already mentioned a children's home in Lebanon. There was a children's home in, I believe, Evansville. Is that right? Or
There's
in
one
southern
in
Indiana?
There's a small in Evansville, and then the EUBs had a home in Flat Rock, Ohio.
Okay. So the concept there of the church being the umbrella for the children's home concept, how did that work in the early days?
I'm not sure what you mean on
Well,
that.
well, I mean that
We-
synergy between the church and the children's home.
There's always been, in fact, when I started here, the whole board of directors were Methodist
Okay.
pastors. And soon after I came, they began to expand the board to business people.
Mhm.
And we began to be more of I guess, a business than a mission,
Mhm.
since we were in the United States where that's true. The Methodists have always been very strong for children's homes and homes for the aged.
Mhm.
And those were two social strengths that they had. And Bashor was a part of that. Actually, we were one of the first organizations to get the Eagle certification out of the Methodist Church when
Mhm.
they developed their own certification program. And Bashor was on the cutting edge of that. So
So you were brought in. Ray Stoll was here, handed the reins to you in terms of putting the programming together.
Yes.
Talk about the early stages of programming and what you needed to be able to offer to the, at that time, only young men, but the young men who were placed in Bashor Children's Home care.
Well, the biggest challenge was to start the house parents who have been caring for orphans
Mhm.
to begin to look at, it's not just kids that we're taking care of, but it's kids with families who have problems and what kind of problems they were going to bring to us. So a lot of training, a lot of hand holding.
Mhm.
I had 3 years of experience at the Lebanon Methodist Children's Home, which was an excellent program, but I got really good grounding there. I was a therapist at that particular facility, but I knew how to work with the house parents.
Mhm. And it's and how long did it take then to develop a relationship with the state and with the counties in order for them to have the confidence to say, you know what, this is a place where we believe young men can get help?
It was several years before we
Mhm.
started getting a good flow of kids. But in fact, as I said, when we moved in this facility, we did it gradually. But the couple counties wanted us to do it faster, but we felt
Mhm.
faster would not be better.
Yeah. What was the average stay back then?
The average stay was about 2 years.
Okay.
And the average stay, well, I'm not even sure where it is today. I've been not here for the last couple of years, but it was down to probably 8 months to a year.
Mhm. And the primary goal was to do what?
The primary goal is always to reunify the family if
Mhm.
it's at all possible.
And
And that's not always possible.
right, right. Some of your favorite moments from those early days. So some of your favorite memories. I know I'm putting you on the spot right away.
Well, probably my favorite memory of the old buildings when
Mm-hmm.
I had to let one of the house parents go, and when I let them go, I realized I had nobody to put in that building. So I moved into the building with the kids. I was going to be there for about a week, but I was there when we landed on the moon.
Oh,
And
okay.
it was really fun. The kids all wanted to stay up and watch it because it was going to be on TV.
Mhm.
And so we got the popcorn out and we really just had a good time. I think it was like about 2 in the morning when that actually happened.
It was pretty late. You're
And I
right.
think only 3 kids were awake at the time that we did it. But that was probably my favorite
Yeah.
kid time.
Yeah. Some house parents would let you stay up on New Year's Eve, watch the ball drop.
Oh, yes.
You let them stay up and watch them land on the moon. That's pretty good.
They would never have that experience again. So
Yeah.
that was
Do you have
fun.
a couple of favorite kid stories from those early days?
Probably my favorite kid is one of the first kids. Actually, it was the first kid I admitted under the new Let's Work with Problem
Mhm.
Kids, and it was a 10-year-old young man from Gary. And in the course of treatment with him, I had taken him home to Gary to see his mother. And the week after that, we met with the welfare department, and his mother got very angry. He had been abused and neglected, and the mother got up at the end of that meeting and looked at him and says, "You can either come home now or you can go to hell." And the kid kind of curled up by me and came back, and it was rather interesting because he was here for about 2 years and was adopted by a family over in Wakarusa. Was actually went to Northwood High School, was the outstanding athlete at Northwood his senior year.
Oh, wow.
And he came back to see me several years after that. And his comment to me was, "I'm sure glad I went to hell." And that was probably one of my highlights
Yeah.
with kids. But I still see or hear from a young man. I call him a young man.
Mhm.
He's 64 years old, and I have contact with him. He's in Indianapolis. He called me last week.
Mhm.
I hear from him about every 3 months, and I have several that still stay in touch. And it's really neat to
Oh, yeah.
have that real long-term relationship.
Well, you've got this
with
collection
them.
of long, long stories. One of my favorite stories from my time here, because I did get to interact with the kids, especially on some of the projects we did. But one of the first years we did the Bashor calendar. We started that during my tenure here, and we had a young man who was very, very talented, very gifted, and I think he ended up with 2 pages in the calendar. He probably could have had 10, but we had to limit that. And for 2 years in a row. And then he was able to get out of the program. He was from Fort Wayne. And my bride and I were walking in Glenbrook Mall in Fort Wayne a year or 2 after that. And it was interesting because we walked past a group of kids, and you know how we adults are. We walked past a group of kids who are all congregated, and I'm kind of like, and so we start walking maybe a little bit faster, and all of a sudden I feel arms come around from behind me, and I hear Mr. Turner, and it just right after I ended my tenure of clean underwear. I turn around and I recognize who he is, and he gives me this great big hug, and I ask him what he's doing, etc. And he mentions that he is now the top art student at Fort Wayne Snyder High School,
goodness.
and he's going to a prestigious art school in Columbus, Ohio, and he has since gone on and works in graphic arts for an advertising agency or whatever. But he'd gone from one of our, I think, drug programs, and then went into long-term care, and then went back home in Fort Wayne. But I admit he scared the water out of me when he first. But then just that highlight and the look on his face when he was telling me what he was doing now, like that was one of the most important things that he could have done, was let somebody from Bashor know that whatever you may have thought when he first started here, he was going to make it, and he did. And I think that's a key, in that, from what you said about this mom, who was probably frustrated. We probably shouldn't judge too harshly on her or whatever, but sometimes we get children and families who are at the end of the line, and we help move them along.
Yes.
And for you, that has to have been over and over and over again gratifying.
For many of the kids, though, the changes we would like to see, you're not going to see until the child has been gone from here for 2 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And so many of the young people who come back to see us, and I hear the same story frequently, is I didn't like it while I was there, but now that I'm 25 and I have my own kids, it all's making sense.
Yeah. I used to think Steve Ross was the dumbest man on the face of the earth, and now he's full of wisdom.
In fact, I've had a couple of kids come back and want to know, how do I help my kids understand what I went through?
Oh, wow.
So that they don't go through that.
Yeah. So that is actually a great follow-up question. How do you help the next generation understand just what a success story these parents are, because they've come from the spot where they were when they were children?
Yeah, that's a challenge for young people growing up.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I was just watching a film with my daughter. She was home this week, Monday to Wednesday, and we watched Show Me the Father, and a tremendous movie on fatherhood.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I highly recommend it to all fathers. Ought to watch that film. But it talked in that film, all the men that were involved came out of very difficult home situations. But it showed what the Lord can do in healing the heart. Our job is not to cure kids here. Our job is to teach kids. Number one, you are special. You're created in God's image.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a good future. In fact, our young program, the last program I developed here was the HOPE program, which was dealing with 10 to 12-year-old sex offenders. And the word hope stood for helping offending patterns end.
Mm-hmm.
We could help those patterns end. The success rate was very high in that program. And, but not only do you want to work with the kids, you have to get the parents on board as well.
Right.
And that sometimes was a more challenging task. But many of the parents that we never criticized the parent. We saw the parents as an asset.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel most parents do the best job they know how to do.
Mm-hmm.
And but when you've not come out of a home that's had good images for you to follow, you need help.
But you mentioned, the Hope program and you being, at an age where you really should have started thinking about retiring. All of a sudden, you're going to get a new program, and not just a new program, but probably historically the most difficult program Bashor ever started,
and one I never knew anything about.
But what it's you came here on God's grace, and
yes,
might as well continue on that. Want to talk about some of the other programs in just a moment, but just a reminder for you out there. First of all, I'm Vince Turner. I'm the former development director here at Bashor Children's Home. I was here from 1997 through 2007. He's Steve Ross. You think I was here a long time? Steve practically invented all the wood out there, but Steve was program founder. He was program director. He was the vice president of operations. He's worn an awful lot of hats and has certainly got his DNA runs deep here at Bashor Children's Home. A reminder, first of all, thank you to New Way underwriting our program here for the 99 Club. New Way, where they build lasting relationships with clients, team members, and trade partners by providing a superior building experience. This is the 99 Club. We've created the Bashor Children's Home 99 Club just for you and your $99 check. We want to get 99 people to give $99 in this, the 99th year of Bashor Children's Home. And if you're one of them, you'll get one of these exclusive 99 Club t-shirts. As a matter of fact, rather than just letting it show my chub, we will get it out here and show how it looks on if you are svelte. This will look fine on you, wear it for your workout, wear it while you're out walking around, what have you. But go to bashor.org, be one of our contributors for the 99 Club. Steve, from the days of Miriam Cunningham, the queen of Bashor Children's Home, who helped run that original orphanage, to today, where we have a newly built facility for victims of sex trafficking and human trafficking, where we have a safe place for runaways that can be here on campus. In some cases, no questions asked. You mentioned the Hope program, the alternative programs, day programs where kids can get some help here. I mean, there's just so much. In your wildest prayers and dreams in 1968, when you first came here, did you ever think that this would happen on this campus?
No. And Ray Stahl and I had a conversation one time as we were looking at the future of Bashor, being so glad that we only had to deal with boys. And 5 years later, we had girls and that was a whole new ball game to deal with. And it was kind of funny because when the girls came to campus, we were going to be challenged with how to keep the boys out of the girls' cottage, and it was just the wrong direction. The challenge was how to keep the girls out of the boys' cottage. And it was, we laughed about that afterwards, but I'll never forget that conversation. We were so glad we didn't have girls on campus. But the things we're doing now, we're more specialized.
Mm-hmm.
The Hope program, when we started the sex offender program with adolescents, and we failed at that. We did not do well with that. And that program dropped. And that program, Hope, when it started, was actually a cooperative program between Bashor and Oaklawn and Holy Cross Counseling Group.
Mm-hmm.
We had three different agencies involved and working together to provide those services. One of the things I've always loved about Bashor is we have been creative. We've never thought we are the only ones that can do this. We were always looking for new ways, new people to involve. And I think it's paid a lot of dividends for kids.
So when you look at, you had the opportunity, really the founding executive director, with Ray Stull. And then for a brief time, Rich Nelson, and then Don Phillips is here for more than 20 years. You and I both had the opportunity to work for him. And now Sean McCrindle has risen up through the ranks to
who I
take over.
trained.
Yeah, that's right. From the very first
yes,
training. That's
yes,
right. Yeah.
Yes, no.
So, but I still remember when Don came from New York. I'd been on board as the development director for about a year, and I thought, oh, this is going to be pretty interesting. It's going to be a fun ride, and indeed, it has been. But when you look at that metamorphosis of leadership, not just from those three names, but the other people who have been in program leadership positions, Bashor has attracted some very, very talented people.
Yes. And the Lord has always provided the right person at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Ray did a very good job while he was here. And when he was here, Rich was only here for a short period of time, but we got the drug program as a result of Rich being here. And when Don came, it was just the right person at the right time. And we've been through some tough economic times, and Don was exactly the right person to know the economics of the situation.
Well, it's most of the people in this business have social worker degrees,
yes.
MSWs. We were fortunate Don not only had an MSW, but had done a tremendous amount of work toward his MBA.
Yes.
So we got the social aspect of it, as well as the financial aspect of it, and it really helped us build some things. We would be remiss as we wind this down. I wanted to talk about two of the long-time relationships. Even though we do an awful lot of education now on campus, a very, very integral part of our success story in the 60s and 70s was Wani Community Schools.
Actually, it's kind of interesting. When I came here, all the kids went to Wani schools, and we became integrated while I was here early.
Okay.
And we were not successful or very successful in integrating the Wani schools. So that motivated us to, how do we provide the best educational opportunity? So we went to Elkhart and asked them if they would take some of our students. And they agreed to do that. And so we put our minority and some of our inner city kids into the Elkhart system, where they were more comfortable than the Wani system, which is a very rural system. And because Concord was between us and Elkhart, we also went to Concord and asked them.
So we were able to expand that.
We were able to expand that. As a result of that, from Elkhart Community Schools, one afternoon I was leaving, and Carson Landis was sitting out front, who was their special education director. And he says, "Do you got a minute?" And I said, "Yes." And we had a part-time school at that point in time. And he said, "I want to know if you'll take some full-day students." And he got us thinking about doing full-day education program. And that was the catalyst to where we are today.
Well, and the other partnership that I wanted to highlight in this past segment that kicks off the 99 Club is a partnership that probably has gone unsung for a long period of time, and that's the partnership of the Ross family. Your children grew up on this campus.
They both worked here.
Your bride was an integral part of it. How was that as a family doing this mission?
We just thought it was a part of our life. It wasn't anything special to us. We just grew up with it. My kids went to school with the Bashor kids. They had friends here. My wife actually worked here. We were short when we went to shifts, and we needed an overnight person. We had an emergency, and my wife said she'd fill in for a couple of weeks, which ended up being several years doing that. But she's always been very supportive of my work, and the kids have been supportive. I'm really pleased. My kids are both involved in service work now and in mission work, and it's just awesome to see.
Well, that's what they grew up with.
Yes, that's what they grew up with.
And Karen, bless her heart, you had never had any such thing as an 8-hour day when you were here at the children's home, but she was able to still, maintain the household, help out here at Bashor, and do a little dad brag. Talk a little bit about what both of your children are doing now, because I think it's really impressive, the mission work.
My son is an OB and felt called to Ethiopia 3 years ago. And he and his wife live in Soto, Ethiopia, where he's at Soto Christian Hospital, and works as an OB there. And my daughter actually started working in group homes in Cincinnati, was a child care worker, became a social worker, and she has since gotten a degree in computers, and she's the IT person for Cincinnati Children's Hospital on their psychiatric ward.
Amazing. Just absolutely amazing. You got a lot to be proud of, my friend.
I love my kids.
Well,
they are awesome.
San Diego may have been more tempting, but you ended up in the right spot.
The Lord knew what he was doing.
No better way than to kick this off with the Bashor past than talk about a guy and talk with a guy who's been a major part of the past for more than 50 of our 99 years. You've been listening to the Bashor Children's Home 99 Club podcast, giving a voice to the most vulnerable children and the experts who help them. Big thanks to New Way Construction, our underwriting sponsor. Thanks to Irish Dave, who gets us on the air, because neither one of us, I mean, you just got your first smartphone, and I'm not any smarter than a phone either. I'm your host, Vince Turner. Have a great evening, everybody.